Hello, my name is Laura, and you're watching the Beanbird 2 channel where we talk about testimonies and the goodness of God. And today I want to talk about a difficult topic, talking to the dead, psychics, grief, dealing with lost loved ones and the struggles that people go through with that. My grandpa lost my grandma through a battle with cancer. She passed away. And my grandpa was a very logical type man. He didn't believe in a spirit world. He was atheist in his beliefs. And he just really focused on what was physical that he could see and touch. That was what real was. And he didn't put any attention to spiritual things. I was in the room with him and my family when my grandma passed away, and he was holding her hand, and when she died, his watch stopped at that time. And I think that was the first moment where he felt like there maybe was a spirit world. The timing of that being the exact time of her death, it was just a very odd thing. And he said that when she passed away that he felt his hand like heat up. And him being not a spiritual person, this really rocked his world. This was a big deal. This was like, what just happened, And he was not, a believer, as I said. So after her death and the funeral and all that took place, it takes a week or so for life to kind of go back to normal, if you will, after all the brunches and family gatherings. And around that time, he went to bed, and he said he was laying in bed looking at the ceiling, and he saw like some type of like portal open up over his head. And the next day or so, he got a grief sympathy card in the mail, and it had like a whirlpool type picture, and he said, "This is what I saw above my bed," and he was pointing to the card. And he's like, "I'm afraid to even tell you guys this." He's like, "because I feel like people are not going to believe me. They're going to think, oh, you're just grieving." But I of course do believe in the spiritual world and existence that is around us. And so we tried taking this opportunity to share the gospel with him and talk about Jesus. And he listened. But then after this point in time, he started having these apparitions, demon appear in his room. He would say every night when I go to sleep, this he would say, "Your grandma comes into the room and she lays in the bed with me." And we were like, okay. So we were listening to him, and he was just really it was more amazing to hear because he was someone who would have never talked like this before. It was just such a big like shift for him. And we were like telling him, like, that's not grandma. When you die, you don't come back again. You don't turn into an angel. You don't turn into a ghost in limbo. That's not grandma. You're seeing a spirit, and you need to turn to Jesus. And he just really was resistant to that idea of turning to Jesus, because he said, well, if I pray about it, if I go to Jesus, he's like, it'll go away. And I don't want it to go away. And so he was just so desperate to hold on to the likeness of my grandma. And over time, periods of months, he would tell us what was happening. And he would say, sometimes when she comes into the room, she looks like a child. Sometimes she looks like a teen, 20s, 30s, 50s, all different ages, different nights. And one of the huge red flags was, and he was reluctant to share this, he said that if he looked at her or tried to touch her, she would go away. So he said he would always try to stay really still in the bed. And so one day he said he felt her laying next to him, and so he tried to kind of like look at her like slowly and like to see if he could catch a glimpse. And he said, when I saw her, I could see that her eyes were red. He said it was like little red laser beams in her eyes. And again, we told him, Grandpa, this is not grandma. This is a demon. You need to pray. We need to take you to church. And we did end up taking him to church. And he did end up talking to the pastor. And the pastor, again, repeated the same sentiments. That's not your wife. And he just really was unwilling to let go of my grandma in that way. And so he ended up choosing to make his life more conducive to more interactions with this spirit being. And it ended up leading to worse and worse things for his life. And it just went down a really negative trail. And we were trying to tell him that if you're choosing to interact with this likeness of grandma, then you're choosing that over Jesus. And in the end, that's what he decided to lean on was that. Now, I don't know, if he made the Lord knows his heart. So what happened beyond that point in time, only Jesus knows between him and the Lord. My grandpa's soul and salvation is not for me to debate, but I was very alarmed that he kept leaning towards this apparition being his comfort. And I think that it's so hard when we lose someone that we love and we're so attached to, and we don't want to lose them. And the grief is real and the sorrow is real. And I have become aware that they're trying to use AI now to capitalize on people's grief. They're saying that, if you're diagnosed with a terminal illness, or if you just want to be proactive, you can have your likeness created by AI that will learn your mannerisms, the way you respond to questions. And then they're talking about how through a monthly subscription, you can continue to interact with your loved ones via AI technology. And when I heard that, I just thought about people who are grieving, who are going through such difficult times, and like the devil is trying to profit on their grief. And it takes their mind off of relying on their hope and trust in Jesus and puts it into interacting with this false AI representation of who the person is. And, a lot of people will turn to psychics or seances, mediums, talking to the dead. And Deuteronomy chapter 18 strictly, forbids talking to the dead. And we know that when we die, we go to, be before the Lord who, decides what comes next for us. And I was praying about a verse to share regarding this. And I felt the Lord was leading me to this in John chapter 11, verse 17. And I'm going to read a little bit before just to give context of what it's about. It's about Lazarus and Jesus. So it says, so when Jesus came, he found that he had already been in the tomb 4 days. Now Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them concerning their brother. Martha, therefore, when she heard that Jesus was coming, went to meet him, but Mary stayed at the house. Martha then said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Even now I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Martha said to him, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live even if he dies, and everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? And she said to him, Yes, Lord. I have believed that you are the Christ, the Son of God, even he who comes into the world. And really, it's all right there. Jesus, I can't say it better than Jesus, right? I know Jesus would want to comfort you if you're grieving, and he draws near to the brokenhearted. And I would just say that we have to lean on the Lord. We have to trust him. my mom passed away, and losing a parent is always very difficult. It's a big change and shift in your life. It's hard to describe what that is, but people always say, losing a parent is different than any other kind of loss, and also losing a child is devastating. And we just have to trust Jesus that He knows what He's doing, and we have to trust Him that He can comfort us and allow Him to comfort us. And I try to always remember that, when you're doing a funeral and you have, the casket there, your loved one is not in that casket. And, that's just the shell, that's the body. But the spirit goes to, the Lord, and the Lord decides what comes next. And I think it's important to realize too that we don't cease to exist. People are in a different, I don't know, we don't see them with our eyes anymore, but that doesn't mean that they poof, like they don't exist anymore. But I try to just think about like that's for God to work with and deal with, and I just need to focus on running the race that's set before me and running well, make sure that I'm doing everything that I can on my walk, and that I'm trusting in the Lord, and that we're running the race because our time is but a breath, right? It's fleeting. We have these years to live, and we have to make the most of what the Lord blesses us with to live. And if you're grieving, I hope that comforts you. It is very hard, and I know we need to lean on our loved ones or your church family as you go through a difficult time. But it is so important that we don't go in the wrong direction because of grief. That we don't lean on psychics and spirits, mediums, tarot cards, and those kinds of things to try to connect with a realm that is forbidden, according to Deuteronomy chapter 18. So the Lord does draw near to the brokenhearted, and He loves you, and He cares for you, and He wants what's best for you. We have to just keep choosing Jesus every day. And someday we will be reunited with our family in heaven and our loved ones, and we'll see family members that we didn't even know that, were preceding us for, hundreds of years even. And someday we will be with the Lord in heaven, and then we will all rejoice, and every tear will be wiped from our eyes. And that day is coming. It's coming soon, and I just keep looking forward to the blessed hope that Jesus has set before us, that He set us free, and we need to continue to live like we're free. And Jesus set us free. And that's a beautiful thing, and He loves us, and that's all we need. All we need is Jesus. Thanks.